Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Dark Art Society podcast. I'm your host, Chet. This week, I have Mitch Horowitz, one of my favorite guests to have on the show. And he is going to be discussing his new TV show, Alien Encounters, Fact or Fiction. It's really good. I saw the first episode, and I'm excited for him. This is really cool. Like I said in the interview, one of the cool people got a TV show. We should all be happy about that. Anyway, that's coming up. I had a really great conversation with them. What's going on with me? Studies. You can see some in the background. I'm doing studies for my solo show in October at Copro called Life and Death, and just working on those mainly. If you want to support this podcast, I'm going to try and keep this short to get on with the good stuff. You could go to patreon.com/darkartsociety. If you want to see my stuff, if you want to see the studies being made in pretty much in real time, as soon as I'm done for the day, I post pictures of them. I do time lapses. You can go to patreon.com/chatzar and join for as little as $1 a month. If you want to support this podcast, you can go to patreon.com/darkartsociety. And you get your name read on the air if you join for as little as $1. And if you join at the $5 and above level, you get the a 20% discount code for Skull Shop. That's SKULLSHOPPE.com. And they make the most amazing skulls. I use them in all my skull paintings. You can see those paintings in the back there. Those are Skull Shop skulls. There's one, like a kid's skull, I think, or adolescent. Whoa. Jaw just fell off. That's they're removable though. So, amazing skulls. So if you join at the $5 and above level, you get that 20% off, and they really are amazing. They're amazing skulls. So let me say the new members' names here. I'm getting old, so I'm starting to need to use reading glasses. I mean, I've been using reading glasses for years. I just never do it on the podcast. But Kirill Chengoff, thank you very much. Brittany Wadsworth, thank you. And Alec Fredericks, thanks so much for joining. Really appreciate that. This is how the podcast gets done. I couldn't do it without you people supporting me on Patreon. Okay, and I got one more order of business, and that is our other sponsor, which is Beautiful Bazaar. And they have this Beautiful Bazaar Art Prize happening. Entries are now open for the 2024 Beautiful Bazaar Art Prize. Through this international art prize, you can showcase your work on a global scale and win big with $65,000 in cash and prizes up for grabs. This is a non-acquisitive art prize, which means that you don't have to submit a physical artwork to enter. Instead, all you need to do is submit an image of the best work from your whole portfolio. It doesn't even matter if the work you enter has already been sold. With the addition of the new Emerging Artist Award, there's a total of 5 categories that you can enter: traditional art, sculpture, photography, digital art, and Emerging Artist Award. You can enter from anywhere in the world. They have a brand new jury panel this year, so it's a whole new chance to become a finalist and winner, as well as a whole host of cash and product prizes for all of the winners. Winners will also be invited to exhibit in the Beautiful Bazaar magazine exhibition at Modern Eden Gallery in San Francisco, USA, along 70 plus of the world's best contemporary representational artists in November 2024. Better yet, the editor-in-chief and her team guarantee that they look at every single entry. This is a great way to get on their radar for future opportunities too. And they also share many of the entries from now until entries close on July 17th on their social media and in online blogs. For more information, go to beautifulbazaarartprize.art. That's beautifulbazaarartprize.art. They are sponsored by Musonium Gallery, Raymar Art Panels, 33PA, Yasha Young Projects, Beowulf Books, Modern Eden Gallery, Principal Gallery, and hold on a second. Principal Gallery, Quarantine Events, Static Medium, Rosemary Brushes, Darticor Paints, and XP Pen Drawing Tablets. Now, you know me, I would not accept sponsors if I didn't believe in them. So I really do recommend, if you're trying to get a leg up in the art world, you're building a career, or you've got a decent career and you just want to try and get some prize money. They're a great organization. They've curated, I've been in plenty of their shows they've curated. They're really cool people. So I highly recommend it. I also wanted to mention that many of you know Manhands Dan Kelley, an artist, tattoo artist. He's been curating shows, Dark Art Society shows for the last couple of years. And if you don't know, he's fallen on really hard times. His studio is just destroyed by broken pipes, and he's having trouble struggling to get money together to pay to live on. So I wanted to mention that there's a GoFundMe for his Skull and Snakes. It's called Donate to Support for Skull and Snakes Recovery, organized by Chad Chase. Phantom Ink Tattoo posted it on their Facebook page. But if you search GoFundMe Skull and Snakes Recovery, I'm sure it'll come up. I will also put a link in the show notes below this video or podcast. And so if you can support Dan, he's always been very supportive of the dark art community and putting these shows on. He also wanted me to tell you, if he has your artwork from shows you've been in the past, he's got them taken care of. They are not damaged. They didn't get near any water or anything. He's taken all of the artwork that he has not mailed back out. He's just been going through a difficult time. So hang in there, Dan, and please support if you can. Let's get on with it. Very excited to share this interview and always excited to talk with Mitch. So here we go, and I hope you like it. Hello, Mitch.
My man.
So happy to have you back.
I'm happy to be here. I'm delighted.
I've missed talking to you and seeing you. So it's great to have you back. And congrats on the show.
Thank you.
I've
been excited. My throat is hoarse. I talk and talk and talk and collapse. Again. No, I'm really happy about it. It's a dream come true. It's a dream come true.
This is your first show where you're the host, right?
That's right.
Because you've been on a lot of shows, but you're kind of like a guest.
Exactly. A guest, a talking head, an interview subject. But this is my very first time hosting, and it's been a dream and a goal that has been with me, wow, I would say since probably 2007.
Wow.
And that was before my first book, Occult America, even came out. I was on two network shows then. One was a History Channel show on, I think it had something to do with the theme of ancient apocalyptic prophecies. Mm-hmm. And the other was the Montel Williams show.
Oh, really?
Montel had seen the first show and said, "Oh, I like this guy." So I came on Montel.
Wow.
And it was thrilling. And of course, in the interim, I was working very steadily on Occult America and so forth and so on. And you know how it is. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Development is living hell capped with crushing disappointment. Anyone who's worked in the screen trade in any way, shape, or form recognizes that statement.
Oh, yes.
But I was struck by something, and I know you'll relate to this, and I know your listeners will relate to this. I read a book from the 1950s by a guy named Frank Bettger, and it's called How I Took Myself from a Failure to Success in Selling. So it's one of these salesman's Bibles. Mm-hmm. And it said something in the book that I was so aroused by, and I never forgot it. He said, every salesman knows a hidden law, and that is that you make 100 phone calls and you get nowhere. And then one phone call comes seemingly from out of the blue that just makes your season. But that out of the blue call wouldn't have come had you not made the other 100.
Right.
So I've always remembered that, and actually conceptually, G.I. Gurdjieff said something very, very similar about there being a lawful outcome behind unflinching perseverance.
Hmm.
And we often read this type of stuff, maybe in Napoleon Hill, maybe in other types of success literature. And there are days where it doesn't hold up. Have had my days screaming into pillows or, sitting in a park somewhere writing in my journal, like, I have failed. you know, and, and yet the weird thing is when you really want to do something, and I'm sure you know this from your own artwork, when you really want to do something, it's almost like the wish itself has a claim on you. Like if you swore it off, you'd go to sleep, you'd wake up, and 22 hours later, you'd be back at the easel, you'd be back at the canvas, you'd
Hmm.
be hitting a visual program that you're working with. It won't let go of you. And
Right.
I can't tell you, like anybody who comes on this show would say this, you would say this, I would say this, any working artist would say, I can't tell you the crushing disappointments I've had, betrayals and, doors slammed on my hand, just after I thought everything was great. And, somebody wanting to do a timeshare with me and then 24 hours later not returning my phone call, and it's agony. It's
Yep.
everything you've heard and worse.
Yep.
And, and we all know it. We all know it. And yet I view that as almost advanced payment of debt, almost advanced payment of debt.
Mm.
You have to pay for shit. And and I do really believe that there is something lawful about unflinching perseverance. Napoleon Hill talks about it all the time. And it can be cold comfort when you're waiting for that phone call or when you're not getting a return to that legitimate email or whatever it may be, or
Hmm.
somebody who you thought was your friend or your ally, fucks you over or whatever it may be.
Yep.
And it happens multiple times, but you pay and you pay and you pay. And then suddenly, from so-called out of the blue, the thing comes. Like when this phone call came, I was in Los Angeles. I think you and I were hanging out. It
Mm.
was in January of this year. My partner Jacqueline and I were there visiting her brother JP, and I was in JP's apartment, and I got a call from a producer, Chris Sanders, and he was like, "Yo, what's up? We're putting together this UFO show." And so he said it's happening like really quickly, and I was like, "Well, you want me to come see you?" And so I hopped in the old Uber. I went and got coffee with him, and we talked it over. And boom, if I'm not damned, there's the thing up in the bar, last Wednesday.
It's so great.
And it's so crazy because you know how it is. You develop, and then some shit happens, and 8 months of like heartrending work seems to
Right.
go nowhere. And this thing comes, and people often say to me, "How did you get connected to the show? How did this happen?" And it's like, dude, let's turn the clock back to 2007 because that's how long I've been trying.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it when stuff works out like that. I mean, it's like so rare that it works out that well, or it just
I
happens. What, 5 months it's been?
totally
It's crazy.
5 months,
It's
but
crazy.
that's years of effort. That's
Yeah.
years shooting things and then being told like, "Oh, sorry, there was a pigeon in the background. We can't use it." And I mean, one pitch after another, coming within a whisker of success, and then somebody just pulls out one of the cards, and the whole house comes down. Or,
Right.
happens all the time.
Yep.
Guy you're dealing with moves on or gets fired, or new person comes in, wants his or her own project, whatever.
Yeah.
All the time. So I view it, I'm so grateful, but at the same time, it's also, it was years of effort.
Yeah.
Um, but those years of effort too, and I'm sure you feel this in your work. Like, when do I relax? I relax when I'm doing it.
Hmm.
Everybody says, "Oh my God, you work so hard. How do you do it?" I relax when I'm doing the thing. Shooting that show, every day was a peak day. Every day.
Really?
The crew was great. Crew was like super sick professional. I mean, outstanding people. And I love Roswell. It's like right there in the middle of the desert.
Hmm.
I like, and the people are really cool. And we're decamped into kind of like a semi biker bar, and it just taught me a lot. And every day was a peak day, every day. And so that's when I relaxed.
That's amazing. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like I get stressed when I'm not doing something creative. It's like I can't, it's hard for me to take vacations even really, because I love to work. I love what I do. It's like, that makes me feel whole when I'm sitting there painting,
Yeah. I write on vacation,
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, it's funny, Chet, I mean, look, what can I tell you? When you can do in adulthood what you loved as a kid, it's such a blessing,
Yeah.
And I mean, the show goes on, we have a party. The next day I get up, I'm writing a book review for Quest magazine about a very good book about the mystic Johannes Kelpius by Timothy Grieve Carlson. And I'm like, I'm enjoying the hell out of myself. Great book, writing a review. And, it's all I know how to do. So if I go on vacation, um, we'd probably do well on vacation,
Yeah.
We should get like a timeshare in Belize or something. Just
Totally.
work.
Working vacation.
It's all I do.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love it. And I can understand how the ennui that people feel when they're not connected to shit that they love,
Yeah.
and maybe that's when things become a problem, when you're leaning too hard on whatever, the substances or the this or the that or the binge watching or the eating or
Hmm.
whatever. And to be connected with the thing that you love doing, what more can a person really ask for?
Yeah. Yeah. Traditional vacations are more like people that hate their jobs that are trying to escape their job for a bit. But when you love
Yeah,
your job, it's not the same. It's just not the same thing.
yeah.
Um,
So I'm grateful,
yeah.
I'm grateful and taking a breath, and I like the show, I mean, I
Yeah.
was
It's great.
thank you. The edit is everything,
Hmm.
and you don't really know what is going to be represented until you see the edit, over which I have zero control.
Right.
And I had only seen the first episode just maybe 2 hours before premiere. Discovery sent me a link, and it, destructs at midnight, and I watched it, and I was like, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great. I don't have cable, so I was thinking that I wasn't going to be able to watch it, but you could buy the episodes on Amazon, so I bought the only episode
Oh,
that's
good.
out is the
Thank
first
you.
one. And yeah, it's great. It's great. I'm so excited to see you hosting a TV show. That's like to me that's the big thing. It's not even so much that it's a cool alien show. It's like Mitch has a TV show. This is so cool because it's like because I know you and I know you're a good guy,
Thank you.
and I know that you deserve this, and it's so I'm happy for you.
Thank you. And I would surmise you've had an experience like this, and I'd like to hear about it. Like I said to myself, it's going to come. It's going to come. The effort, the mental, emotional experience, the visualization, the
Mhm.
prayer, the ceremonies, the magic. It's going to come, but it's going to come in a way that I don't expect, like everything
Yeah.
does. I didn't expect it would have to with UFOs and aliens, which is an interest, but has over the course of my career been a secondary interest.
Right.
The truth is, when I got fired from a politics job, a job in publishing, and I took a job at Torture Penguin, or what was then called Torture Penguin, everybody said, I didn't know you're in spirituality. I said, I am, but it's a secondary interest. But you can't tie yourself in knots and say, oh, it didn't come with a red ribbon on it.
Yeah.
Exactly. You have to deal. And I've been writing and speaking more and more on UFOs because if you're interested in the occult, if you're interested in non-human intelligences, metaphysics, and you're not dealing with UFOs, it's like you're leaving out a massive component, I think,
Yeah.
of what we're seeking. And these are all just terms anyway, arose
Yeah.
by any name, right?
Yeah.
Some guy says poltergeist, some guy says aliens, some guy says near-death experience, some guy says abduction. We don't know what's going on.
Right.
And and so if we're going to be tuned into our era, our generation, it behooves the occultist to understand UFOs. It behooves I believe, the UFO enthusiast to know something about metaphysics,
Hmm.
interdimensionality, and so the conversation is converging. So it came at a good time that way too.
Yeah. 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 It's definitely. I think I've talked to you about this before. When I saw the fire in the sky sequence of the guy getting abducted,
Yeah.
what my first thought was like, that's exactly like an out of body. It's an out of body experience that I've had. A type of, I didn't get abducted, but it was like I've had these experiences where I can't move, I'm paralyzed, and these little creatures came around me, came in the room, stuck their hands in my head. They're invisible, but you know, they were giggling like little 3 year olds, and it was super creepy, scared the hell out of me. But it really is not very different from that abduction scene in Fire in the Sky, and also the Whitley Strieber stuff from Communion, where that weird
Yes.
little doll thing walks in. That's like, and that is like something that my wife saw when she was a kid. Like she saw this spider turtle come up out of, she said she lived in this house she swore was haunted. She saw a lot of weird stuff. One of them was a spider turtle. It was like a turtle with spider legs and a weird cartoony head that had a smile and two black circles for eyes. And it came up and it would
Wow.
just look at her. And it's like when I saw that sequence in Communion again, when I rewatched the movie, I was like, man, that's just like Lisa's spider, that same cartoony, weird, not of this world, not organic really looking thing, the way she described it to
Now,
me. And
now dig,
they're related. I just know they're related. The two, spirituality phenomenon and alien stuff.
without question, your dream of these little beings. I mean, Jonathan Swift might have had a similar dream the night before he wrote that section in Gulliver's Travels, and
Right.
his imaginary creatures are called Lilliputians,
Mm-hmm.
but might have in conversation called them fairies or something, And today somebody would call them something else. And one of the things I talked about on the show, I don't know if it'll make it in, but in 1893, Teddy Roosevelt publishes a book called The Wilderness Hunter about his experiences hunting in wilderness territory in North America, other continents. And he writes what we would call a Bigfoot story that happened that he learned about while he was hunting along the Idaho Montana border in the late 19th century, which was really wilderness. And he met a trapper who told him this blood curdling story about a Bigfoot encounter, and the Sasquatch-like creature killed his partner, another trapper. And it's chilling and it's very vivid, but Roosevelt uses the term goblin because he didn't have the term
Wow.
Sasquatch.
Yeah. Yeah.
He says goblin and it sounds antiquated to us, but of course, 50 years later, we're all saying Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
And another 50 years, we're saying tall gray. And,
Right.
it's the same conversation, and it raises the question of non-locality, extra physicality. You can say it's ET, you can say it's interdimensional, could be both, could be neither,
Mm-hmm.
but there's this convergence, I believe, in discussions where it dawned on me as people were coming to the table, sharing their experiences on the show, we're all just talking about the same thing using vocabulary that belongs to our generation, whatever it may be.
Right. Yeah. And the vocabulary and terminology fit within certain little subsects of, people that are into aliens are talking about grays and aliens and spaceships, and people who are into the occult are talking about spirits and thought forms. And it's but it's like, it, I really think it is, I mean, we're kind of saying the same thing over and over, but I do think it's the same thing somehow.
I do. And how can one demarcate it when, a term like I was reading that almost every Native American tribe on the North American continent had a term for a Bigfoot or Yeti.
Mm,
They've had these terms. I mean, you've got Native American tribes I mean, just on our continent alone, from the perimeter of the Arctic Circle down to, well, let's say North America, down to Eugene, Oregon, or what have you, huge territory. They're not in touch. I mean, in any conventional way, they all have their terms, and Teddy says goblin because, well, he doesn't have one of those terms. Same conversation.
yeah. It's so weird. Yeah, the idea of growing up in the 70s, how big Bigfoot was. Bigfoot was the thing. Well, actually Bigfoot and aliens were big in the 70s. But
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I remember Legend of Boggy Creek. You remember that movie?
Yeah, of course, of
Scared the
course.
hell out of me. But it was like there was a lot of books. You buy these books at the school book fair. You know,
Arrow books.
yep,
Yes. Yeah.
so
And
great.
you books on ESP research,
Yep,
Bigfoot, Carlos Castaneda. My sister's bringing these home. I'm
yep,
listening. This is fucking wild. She's on the phone with her friends saying Ringo Starr shaved his head in solidarity with Charles Manson. I'm like, not so sure that's true, but that goes in the air.
yeah,
Fascinating.
yeah. It's such it's a weird idea, the Bigfoot thing. It's so like it's not what you'd think of as spiritual. It's so
Right,
earthly and hairy and big and like an animal. It's such a
right.
strange thing.
I
It,
would say it's almost, I mean, listen, if I had to gamble, no way would I gamble that Bigfoot is just a fancy of the imagination of everyone around the world, from, Tibet to,
right,
Columbus, America to, Teddy Roosevelt to, everyone who's ever reported such a sighting, which we now can kind of group under a common language. I mean, the idea that there's this mystery, man-like simian beast somewhere, you wouldn't get me betting on the number that says absolutely not,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, God, we're discovering dragon-like beings in like archaeological digs in China, and I wouldn't go so far. I mean, this obviously is prehistoric stuff,
right,
but I wouldn't go so far as to say that no retentive beast or current beast has ever survived that hasn't been, somehow cryptozoologically cataloged, or it starts to get into questions of, is it a tulpa? Is it a thought form?
right.
Is it dimensional? And, these are questions
Yes,
because the testimony sure as hell is persistent, and the diversity of people who step up with the testimony historically and today, it's a cross section of humanity, simply
yeah,
put.
yeah. So did you? So yeah, I watched the show. I thought it was great. It was cool. It was cool. It was felt it felt legit. And it's like I said, I know that you're an honest person. So you watch these shows and you're not sure if people are bullshitting or not.
Right.
And I know you're an honest guy
Yeah.
and have integrity. So I'm like, okay, I can trust this. You know, so I was able to watch it in a way where I'm not like, these shows a lot of times in the back of your mind, you're like, are these paid actors? And
I
you know
know.
what I mean? But so,
Yeah.
so just, personally for me,
Right.
knowing that, you're not that guy, I was
Yeah.
able to kind of really, I don't know, buy into it more, enjoy it more. And, I felt kind of bad for the first guy.
Indeed. He's a very good man. And, what you saw on the show was probably encapsulated, I would guess, about 2 hours of what went on in the room.
Mhm.
These were honest disagreements. Indy is a cannabis farmer in Northern California, so immediately he has my sympathy.
Oh,
And
they said
he and his
farmer. They didn't
wife,
say cannabis
right,
farmer.
yeah, yeah, he and his wife are outstanding people. He is he's a person very much on the path, like me, like
Hmm.
you. And his father had passed recently. Sounds like a remarkable man. And the two of them were very, very close. And a lot of remarkable events played out contemporaneous with his father's passing, including UFO sightings.
Hmm.
Now, of the data, of the video evidence that Indy submitted, the producers had pre-selected that one video, and they had a very honest disagreement about the coordinates and whether it was the ISS, the International Space Station, that was passing over. I had to go with the data because I felt that the data was clean,
Hmm.
and its proposition was reasonable. But I have to say it was a very tough decision because, first of all, Indy has had several such experiences,
Right.
and I haven't examined any of them
Yeah.
other than that one. And also, Indy raised the very good point, which I believe made it into the episode, and I was glad that it did, that and because I often say this, there may have been one more than one thing going on that night in the skies.
Right.
But the ISS data may be, just fine and accurate, but Indy may have also had a different experience. It doesn't mean it's the only thing that's going on across this vast horizon of Pacific coastline California sky.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of different what ifs there. I firmly believe in the validity and the reality of his experiences apropos his father's passing. I
Mhm.
know, as I think you and I were just sort of suggesting, that there is an intimacy, a link between the UFO thesis and the after death survival thesis that is absolutely intuitively sensed by a lot of people in our generation, and more than intuitively sensed. Whitley Strieber's now deceased wife, Anne Strieber, spent years cataloging thousands of letters from experiencers, and she made the observation to Whitley that there's a connection between what we might call ET UFO experience and or connection between the visitors, so to speak, and after death experience that we haven't cracked yet. And that may be the question that falls to other generations to finally get us a step further in understanding what is being experienced. But
Mhm.
there's questions anyway. I believe that Indy stands at that crossroads, and I believe in the truth of what is occurring at that crossroads. And we could have been wrong. I'm going off the data that we had and making best judgment.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
he disagreed with the data, disagreed with the coordinates, and that is a very honest, reasonable disagreement. So I was glad that the show opened with that, only to the extent that I felt it was a legitimate debate, and it's there
Mhm.
for the viewers.
Yeah, I thought it was important too to show that you're not just going to tell everyone that they had an experience. Like you're actually going to make some judgments based on data, So it seemed
Yeah, I don't know what the other episodes will look like because I haven't seen them. I mean, I'm sort of, these guys are still in post, and I was very, very heartened by that first episode, but I'm not fully, I don't have my feet wet on what the others are going to look like. But I think a real effort was made to not bullshit and to do it straight, at
mhm.
least insofar as the box checks that we were able to bring. There's other tests and stuff that are more expensive that aren't in the budget. And so it's not as if this is the court of final appeals, but
Right. Yeah.
I think the efforts were legit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I just wanted to tell the guy. I wanted to speak to the TV and go, your father died, and even if you saw that and it was a satellite, it's like the fact that you're seeing these things after you had this dream about your dad. You know, there's still something to that, even if it was a satellite. You know what I
I
mean? It's
agree.
like
I
stuff's
agree.
happening.
And I think there are things that he and others have seen congruent with um, deep emotional experience and the passing of loved ones. I absolutely believe it. I absolutely believe it.
Even the dream, even the dream to me seems significant. He said,
Yeah.
the way he described it, I thought that was pretty cool. But how did it feel to touch a possibly a piece of a spaceship? That was pretty cool.
Oh, that was the geologist Frank Kumbler. I was thrilled. I mean, I really felt chills and I was really thrilled. Again, we did the tests that we were capable of
Right.
doing with the budget and the timing that we had. So Frank is a geologist and he's a professor of earth science at the New Mexico Military Institute, a military college not far from Roswell. Um, and my first question to Frank was that supposed crash site, has been gone over so many times. How the hell could there be anything left there?
Hmm.
Said, that's the way debris field is. There's no way that anybody's going to get all the particles in shifting sands and so forth. So he's out there with a Geiger counter and gathered up maybe 20 particles of potential debris or 20 particles of metal from the site. Those that we tested showed signs of manufacturing being blown apart in a combustion explosion and being pure aluminum, which doesn't happen in any manufacturing sector that we know because pure aluminum is too unstable
Weird.
subject to manufacturing. It's always an alloy. So it's like, okay, we just took a deeper step down the rabbit hole. Now, other tests that need to be done, which cost thousands of dollars, are radiation tests on the fragments, which we did not do.
Right.
But we did go a further step down the rabbit hole, and I was very excited by it. And I think Frank is an absolutely solid individual. And holding that in my hand, even just the potential, was thrilling, was absolutely thrilling.
I bet.
Um, I mean, look, in religious life here in the West, people people hold relics in their hands. In the Catholic Church, the question of relics, is it authentic, is it not? Some are, some aren't. I mean, these things are steeped in legend. There are certain relics that people have, of course, of saints that maybe belong more to modern history, and there's a fingernail or a piece of hair or even flesh. And it is thrilling because we as individuals need to feel that there's something bridging this gap, if there is one, between our material and extra material lives. And that's what it felt like to hold that bit of metal in my hand. It felt as exciting as it might to a devout person holding a saint relic.
Right. Was it light? It was light. Was it really
Oh,
light?
very light, and I didn't think I would get to hold it. I thought I get told, now the oil's from your hand will fuck it up.
Could you bend it? If you squeezed it, would it bend?
Well, I kind of felt I needed to be a little more conservative than that.
I just wonder if it would bend I'm just curious how thin it.
Just a tiny fragment, and I held it in my hand. I have some pictures of it, of holding it. I have to put it up. And look, I think there's so much money being spent on so much research, and the relative peanuts it would cost to subject this to radiation testing. I hope someone will step up and do it, or maybe, knock wood, if we come back for season 2, we'll have the budget to do that, because I think that would be just killer.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. And so, okay, the third subject, getting those burns, that was freaky too.
Yeah, Jessica.
A lot of it was her saying she felt shaky and stuff, and you're kind of going, okay, that could be anything, really, But when you see the physical burns, that was pretty weird.
What interested me in that story is that sometime before I encountered Jessica's material, I had been given, maybe it was from one of the producers, I don't recall, I had been given a PDF of a 2010 Defense Intelligence Agency report that reported similarly radiation burns appearing on the body of Air Force and naval personnel following the flyover.
Yeah, I never heard of that. I never heard of it.
Following flyovers of craft employing unknown tech. And I thought to myself, bullshit, this is somebody hoaxing me. I went online, and there it is, recently declassified report on a .gov site. It's as real as the words I'm speaking right now. And I thought to myself, where the fuck is the news about this? Right. I mean, you've got the Defense Intelligence Agency saying, yeah, we're seeing radiation burns on the bodies of military personnel after flyover by unknown technology. Well, next week, we're having our intelligence gathering picnic, and it's like, wait a minute, what the fuck? The only coverage that it's received, I believe, that I know of, has been in USA Today here in the States and the Daily Mail in Britain, and that's it. Wow. And to me, this is just as seismic as the reportage that landed on the front page of the New York Times in 2017, validating, or the Pentagon's validating, of the so-called Tic Tac videos. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying to myself, why the fuck has this not been written about? I mean, the Defense Intelligence Agency just acknowledged the existence of UFOs,
Right.
And next week, we're, what, like planning like the office softball game? Like, they just acknowledge the existence of UFOs in unknown tech. Now, of course, people could argue about that and say it's an op and it's this and it's that. Well, to some people, everything's an op. Yeah. I'm an op.
Yeah, right.
and I can't tell you about that because that's not my area of study, but I can tell you those are what the facts say in this report that's recently declassified, that is now about 14 years old. And I was
Wow.
struck by it. I was
Yeah.
really, really struck by it. Whoever thinks that this is just smudges on the lens, they're just rejectionists to the point of absolutism as much as the most credulous person in the field is themselves,
Hmm.
absolutist in belief. I mean, we just cannot reason from these polarities of absolute credulity and absolute rejectionism.
Right.
It simply doesn't work in 2024. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just
Too much
too,
crazy.
yeah, too
And
much. Yeah. Too much anecdotal evidence and now too much actual evidence. You know what
yeah,
I mean? It's like it's been anecdotal for so long and now we're getting the government coming out and saying that, these things are real. So it's like,
right.
come on.
It's
But it's
just
like,
the
what do you
one reminds
do?
the other. Yeah.
What do you do
And
is the thing. It's like, okay, they said it was real. And it's like, I think it seems like everybody's kind of like, okay, now what? What do you do with that? There's no
right.
answer, but we know that there's something, but we have no idea what it is.
Exactly. Exactly. It seems to me that of the body of cases that reach the public's attention, obviously, the vast majority can be explained in mundane terms. It was a drone, it was a satellite
Hmm.
launch, a mistake, whatever, fine. Then you've got some single digit percentage of cases that really are unknown. And we have to say to ourselves, well, what does that mean? It doesn't mean they're otherworldly or extraterrestrial. It could be, in fact, some form of tech that we don't understand that either comes from us or that comes from somebody else, and we don't get it. Okay, so that's one category. Another category is ET. Another category is what might be called UT, ultra terrestrial, a blink in time, interdimensional, different intersections of time. That's the most favored thesis, I would say, among most people who delve into it,
Hmm.
because, at least in my estimation, we have better conceptual models of interdimensionality than we do of extraterrestriality. It
It's true.
sounds
Yeah.
weird,
Yeah.
but we really do, because I mean, we're now coming up on a century of classical quantum physics experiments, and the interpretations of quantum physics that read into it many world phenomena go back in their purest form to the 30s with the Schrodinger's cat thought exercise, and then were named more precisely in the 50s as the many worlds interpretation by a physicist named Hugh Everett. And the many worlds interpretation is now 70, 75 years old. So
Right.
we have been dealing conceptually with these models of thinking for a long time, almost a lifetime. String theory more or less grows out of that. And so we have these conceptual models worked out, whereas for extraterrestrial travel, the distances are so vast that it really plagues the mind to even conceptualize of it. And we have theories around cosmic wormholes, introducing some maybe exotic piece of matter into the local situation and creating a black hole that bends space-time through gravity. I mean, these models do exist, but the other models are older and more fully worked through. Hence, we can lean on them a little better.
Right. Right.
Wrong, but they're better developed, it seems to me. So those are the choices. There are other choices too that perhaps are outside of all of those, that might have to do with an egregore or a tulpa, which is something that Carl Jung was kind of leaning in the direction of in his book on flying saucers shortly after the Kenneth Arnold sightings. So you have the Tibetan Buddhist view of tulpas. You have the ancient Hellenic view of egregores. You have Jung's view. You have more contemporary views of egregores within the esoteric um, community. So that's a thought as well.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking this is kind of sort of beside the point, but this show is like the UFO thing is your path to the mainstream. You know what
Could
I
be.
mean? It's like the door that
Yeah.
right because it's popular right now.
Right. People
What
about it. Yeah.
people are more into it than they are about talking about. I think magic and the occult and Satanism and stuff like
I do agree. Yeah.
that.
Um,
So that's
I
cool. You
do.
sneak in. You're sneaking
Yeah.
in.
I think that people, it seems to me that when I first started getting invitations to be on shows, people were really interested in secret societies and
Right. Yeah.
prophecies because they were grooving off of Dan Brown's work in Da
Right.
Vinci Code. And that that kind of kept going for several years.
Hmm.
Then that cooled down, but the UFO and alien topics started to really heat up. And it dawned on me, I think I gave a talk at PRS several years ago, um, maybe called Reclaiming the Damned, and it was about marrying Fortean ideas, Charles Fort's ideas, to some of what we've just been talking about, the metaphysics behind experience.
Hmm.
And maybe these two must, need to be married. And that turned into the first chapter in my book, Uncertain Places, which came out, I think, in 2021. So it was kind of like I began to sense that these conversations need to converge. And then, yeah, the whole alien question exploded. And so, knock wood, I mean, if that is the artery to the mainstream, that's wonderful because a lot of people care about it. And I think these conversations have been growing together for several years.
Yeah, and I think, I think a guy like you getting in the mainstream consciousness is good for the things that we care about, which is kind of this overall view that there is a spiritual world that is real.
Yeah.
However you want to describe uh, what we talk about, what you write about, metaphysics and all this.
Thank you.
So it's like when cool bands get in the mainstream because like grunge, when grunge happened, you had all these cool underground bands that nobody gave a shit, no one in the mainstream cared about, but the record companies started signing them, and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of amazing music coming in, and mainstream radio stations were playing them and stuff.
It freaked me out. I never thought it would happen. I mean, I remember I was 17 years old when Combat Rock came out, the last Clash album, and I loved it so much. And I was so excited to see that, oh my God, people are listening to the Clash, like kids are listening to Rock the Casbah, and I was thrilled. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's in the kind of punk rock ethos. You're not supposed to be accepted by the mainstream, but
I,
I think that's how you make things happen is you sneak into the mainstream, you
I
know?
did sneak into the mainstream, and my definition of selling out has always been putting money before quality.
Right.
Putting money before quality, you're selling out.
Yeah.
But being successful is not selling out. If you
Yeah.
can make quality, or at least some reasonable iteration of it, an artist's going to do different things across different media. But if you haven't made that bargain, there's no sellout.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I just got your I think it was today, your Medium post, today's Medium post. It was the intro. I don't know if you have them automated or it just came automated to me in my email.
Oh, was
It
that
was
chapter from the Miracle Club
yeah.
about money,
Yeah.
power to the people? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I dug that. It was like perfect. It was just what I needed today.
I appreciate it. It was hard to write, because I said to myself when I wrote The Miracle Club in 2018, that was my first practical book. My previous two books, One Simple Idea and Occult America, had been straight history. And I said, if you're going to write a book about the practical uses of mind metaphysics, you're going to have to get your hands dirty. And you can't avoid a chapter about money, which
Hmm.
ever. And so, hence, I made a chapter two.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. But just, the idea that we need to heal our relationship with money, especially creative people and artists and stuff. It's like this idea that money is bad is it's keeping us down. We are the ones that should be having the money. If we had the
Right.
money, the world would be better because we would do good things with it. We wouldn't be
I'd like
fucking
to think
things up.
so. I fucking, I try to help people with their shit.
I know, right? We're doing
I,
stuff, helping each other, people that we
yeah,
like, just because we want to do it, and we don't,
right.
we don't have the resources of super rich people. So it's like it benefits all of. I think it would benefit the world if artists and creative people accepted that it's good to have money. It's not just okay to have money. It's good to have money.
Good to have money. And when you get it, be fucking generous with it.
Exactly.
Dime people. I mean, for fuck's sake,
Yeah.
everybody you meet is trying to earn a living, whether it's the guy behind the counter at Chick-fil-A or whether it's the guy who's painting and, trying to figure out, how to afford his next dentist bill. Everybody's working, Be generous. Don't fuck with people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a thing because I grew up, and you grew up in a similar way too. My parents had such a bad relationship
True.
with money, and we were always broke. And it really is like, man, it's been a lifetime of trying to reprogram myself to not have that kind of poverty mindset.
It's so important. I remember you said something to me on an earlier show, and
And
I've
now
been
I'm
working.
always complaining about money.
Oh, well, every artist is in the same place. I
Yeah,
mean, that's why
right.
Norman Mailer wrote so much stuff. He needed the money. He had like, like, what am I supposed to do? Um, but you said something to me on an earlier show that I've been working with for months, and that is that you'd said, you visualized and made every effort towards the life that you wanted, producing fine art. And you've defined fine art for me very well. If I'm paraphrasing you, but fine art is simply art that it's freestanding. It's not necessarily attached to another project, whether it
Right.
be a video, movie, video game, what have you. It might be at some point or
Right.
another, but it's produced without antecedent to this particular project assignment, commission, or other work.
Right.
And I always thought that was a great description. And you wanted a life producing fine art, and everything went great, and you got everything you wanted, but you realized, like a character from Greek myth, that you forgot to ask for this one thing, which is money that comes with it. And we all get so excited. I can show you notebooks of affirmations and describe visualizations and so forth. And for years, I did the same thing. I was like, I want this, I want that, da, 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 and didn't mention money. And
Mhm.
now I try, and I sometimes forget, frankly, to include that in my outlook. And it's easy to forget.
Yeah.
And then it sneaks up on you, and you're like, motherfucker.
I thought it was pretty funny, but it really was kind of like that fear of that programming I got unintentionally from my parents. I think that money's bad and that you shouldn't try and get money and it's somehow it's a negative thing and I think I kind of subconsciously left that part out. And so that was kind of a failing on my part. Not, but it's not that I'm doing okay. I'm making a living, which is great. I just want to do a little bit better than making a living. You know, uh, so I
I,
it
if I may add to
yeah
that, for
yeah
me, it was fear. Like, I would get asked to deliver a talk somewhere, and maybe I was so excited, I wouldn't even inquire about money until after the fact. And then I would find to my surprise that they were, really nickel and diming me or something, which isn't something that I do to people. Like, if somebody says to me, I'm going to paint your kitchen, and we don't talk about money till after the fact. I want to know that that person is happy.
right yeah
Otherwise, I'll paint the damn kitchen myself,
yeah
and yet not everybody feels that way. So I would be so excited and I'd be so fearful that I don't want to do anything to fuck it up,
yeah
that I would take it for given, which is absolutely impossible, because unfortunately the world doesn't function on that system of, like, I want to make sure that this person is feels taken care of, which
right
is try to approach shit when I'm dealing with somebody financially.
yeah 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 me too.
Well, what you will, that's how I do it. But the ask has to be made. The ask has to be made.
Yeah, and one thing I got out of that um, uh, article, the thing that I took from it, like, okay, this is what the article's telling me personally, where I'm at, is I need to make an amount. I need to write down an amount and a date.
Right.
Because that's like, because I've been reading or doing the audiobook of the Napoleon Hill book, and he explains the whole process you're supposed to do, and writing it out is so important, and having a date and having an amount of money. And it's like,
Oh,
I did it one time and I got the money. You
that's
know what I mean?
fantastic.
It's like I've done it before. It's just like I have this. It's more like a vague notion of money, but like you said in this article, it's like it seems like giving yourself a definite amount and a date seems to have some kind of power in a weird way.
It does, and I've resisted that for a long time.
Yeah.
I suppose I saw it as excessively detailed, boxing me in.
Right. Yeah.
Mary Baker Eddy, the founder of Christian Science, she used to talk about the danger of outlining, like you can't decide exactly how your good is going to come to you, which I suppose I was saying in terms of when a show comes, I'm not going to know what it's going to look like. When a artery to the mainstream comes, I'm not going to know what it's going to look like. And I believe that, and I believe in her insight. But I also believe in Hill's insight. I think that one has to try. One has to try
Hmm.
and say, I'm doing this amount by this time. I guess he wants the individual to hold his or her feet to the fire. And people who don't read Think and Grow Rich don't realize how action oriented the thing is. The
Yeah.
title is one of the great titles of all time, but it's very action oriented.
Hmm. Yeah, it's great. It's great. I'm glad I'm doing that book, that audio book. Um, so okay, what happened to your leather jacket on the show?
Oh, he didn't want me to wear it. There's this conviction that, people in the Midwest don't have tats and wear leather jackets. And I was like, I was just in fucking central Wisconsin, so a lot of people with tats and leather jackets.
I knew that was I
Every
knew
bar I
that
went
was
in,
it.
there was tats and leather jackets. But they didn't want me to do it. Now, the weird thing was, in the cold weather, I wear this blue flannel under my
Hmm.
leather jacket. And they were like, we like that. And I was like, all right, well, at least it's a fucking shirt that I wear. So I wore the goddamn blue flannel. I want to wear a leather jacket because that's my colors. That's who I am. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd be wearing it now, but I'd be sweating. And so we'll see. I mean, it's funny. It's mixed with producers. Like I'm doing a show for History Channel called um, The Unbelievable with Dan Aykroyd.
Hmm.
It's a really good show. They've never said word one about the leather jacket. I just show up and they're like, "You ready?" And I'm like, "Yep." And they're like, "Okay." And lights go on and the questions start. Other people feel like, oh, maybe it's too subculture or something. I definitely do not feel that way. And I joke around with my manager, who's from like rural, who grew up on a fucking farm in Ohio. We're all supposed to be these stereotypes, like, yeah, those New Yorkers, fucking snobs. It's like my manager grew up on a farm in Ohio. I mean, you grew up in the Manson family or something. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I have my own story. We all have our own stories. This notion that, somehow there's this thing called Middle America, and
Right.
it's like they look fucking weirder than I do.
Yeah, I know.
So I don't see any problem with it. We'll see, maybe next season, but that's what happened.
Yeah, yeah. I figured as much. I've worked in the movie business long enough to
And the
know how
truth
these
is,
things are.
you ask yourself, what will I and won't I bend on? It's like,
But that's a
uh,
perfect example of something that doesn't matter. It's more important that you're on a TV show.
yeah, fucking
Whether
A.
your jacket isn't that important. It's cool, but
Right.
it's not a deal breaker.
How to decide what hill are you going to die
Yeah,
on?
exactly.
And at a certain point, my manager did say to them, you ain't going to cover up like his hand tats or anything, are you? And they said, no, no. And they did not. And it's like, so I feel like I'm still wearing my colors,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. And they bought all this wardrobe stuff, and I tried on a whole bunch of different stuff, and I'm like, what? I look like fucking Johnny Cash here, and I look like, like some other guy here. And, we just went with the blue shirt, and I was happy with it because at least it's organic. It is a thing that I wear under my leather jacket.
I suppose I bet you it had something to do also with blending in with the bar, the style of the bar too.
I think so.
You
And I
know,
love that part,
that
and
bar is cool.
it is so cool. And Chet, I have to say this to you. I'm sure you've noticed this. Like, where does this fucking fantasy come from that we as a nation are divided? We are
Right.
not divided. This bar is filled. This is not TGI Fridays. Okay. This is like a tough ass bar. And I've been to plenty of them. And they're filled with all kinds of different people, different races, backgrounds, genders, sexual orientations, you name it.
Hmm.
And people are sharing drinks, they're sharing tables, they're sharing households. And I'm asking myself, where does this fiction come from that we're all at each other's throats?
Yeah, I think it's an online thing. I think it's
It's,
like an online. It
it's
does.
such.
I know.
I'm hanging out, and yeah, there's plenty of Trump, signs up in the bar, and there's also plenty of people who are like, trans and black and
Right.
white, and this background, that background, same-sex couples, couples where, no one gives a fuck. And um, there's this one dude I love, this old biker guy. He walks in the bar and he's like, "Who lit the doobie? And why didn't you wait for me?" And it's like, fun. And, that's our country.
Right.
And see, I don't see people at one another's throats except when, I don't know, I guess it's an online thing, isn't it?
I think so. I think so. And that's like just it's not real life.
Yeah,
It's a cliche to say that online is not real life, Twitter's not real life, but it's so true. It's not the
it is.
real world. It's like I've never
I dumped on that expression, but now I know it's right. Yeah.
yeah. It's I've never encountered anything like that out in my neighborhood and I go around LA and Hollywood and I've been all over. I've been to Europe, I've been to the East Coast, I've been all over the place and I just haven't seen that world in reality.
After the show was finished, Jacqueline and I were driving from Roswell to Austin, Texas. And we stopped in between in Lubbock to visit Buddy Holly's grave, which was a very moving experience for me. And I got Buddy tattooed right here, of
Oh,
course.
nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's down, but
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's great.
and so we stop, various points between to get a bite to eat. We stop at this massive barbecue joint, outside of Lubbock. And I'm looking around and it's like, again, every table and the joint is, I mean, it's huge and it's packed. It's a Friday night. Everybody's out. And every table, there's a birthday party. There's this, there's that. People of all different, again, races, backgrounds, genders, and some are married and some are this and some are that. And I'm just like, I don't see it, man.
Yeah.
Everybody's hanging and much doing okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious the amount of people online that are actually bots because I think it's significant. I think it's a significant amount of accounts are bots that are arguing with people, which is crazy.
That's fascinating.
I yeah, there are definitely a ton of bots. There are a ton of bots, especially on Twitter now. But you got to wonder. It's like people are. You've got what if it's 70% people getting riled up by 30% of bots that are not even alive? It's crazy.
It could be, yeah. Are you staying on Twitter in the immediate future?
I am I've become less engaged on social media in general, but I do go back to Twitter for like I'm kind of a news I'm not a political junkie, but I mean, I do follow certain news accounts. I'm interested in seeing the news and stuff on there, but it's just
Yeah.
gotten it's so bad on Twitter. It's like there's so many Nazis now, and Elon Musk is like engaging with them. Nazis.
Oh, is that right? Is
Yeah,
he?
and resharing their
Uh,
commenting on
uh,
their posts. Yeah, like serious far right Nazis. It's I'm not exaggerating. It's really crazy. Like he's gone full on red pilled, as they say.
oh, well, that's great news. Um,
Yeah, the richest guy in the
I,
world's a Nazi.
I get very little hate on there. And I would say about 99% of my interactions are 100% positive. Most of the people are interested in the subject because I just will not talk
Yeah,
trash. And even if somebody says something that's got flat out falsehood, I'll sooner let it stand than talk trash
I
with an
know
ass.
it's so hard. I really after it's really you that inspired me to not do it because I think
Yeah.
I think you're right about that. But every once in a while, I just can't help myself. Just
Hard.
once in a while, one slips through, and I just have to
Yeah.
write it. But it's so dumb.
I
Uh,
do the same. It's personal space. It feels very personal, even though it's such artifice, like you may be talking to a bot
hmm
or it's some anonymous jerk off, who's complaining about something from 10,000 miles away, no idea, is just on there to be an asshole. And it's personal. It feels like personal space. It's weird, when they write the history of this era, if anybody writes this around to write the history of this era, I think that it's going to be seen as one of the great tragedies of the human situation that we
Yeah.
got this technology that we as a human community were not suited to in terms of maturation,
Hmm.
uh, ethics. I know those words are not even used anymore, but we as beings are given this 24/7 open mic, and we're just not up to the task, and we
Yeah.
fail at it. And of course, yes, the algorithm's to blame, and Zuck is to blame, and Musk is to blame, and this, that, and the other thing. I get it. All true, all true. But the individual is still the one who is, you know, cracking a bottle over his neighbor's
Yep.
head. And
Definitely.
that can't be escaped. Can't
Yeah.
be,
Yeah. You got to take responsibility for yourself at some point, even if all
yeah,
this stuff is coming at you from these
you have to.
awful places. But people just don't do that, or
And it's
a
up
lot
to
of
the
people.
individual. Because I don't believe that when we fuck with someone else, whether it's anonymous, whatever it is, um, there's a kind of conscience there. There's a shame, and that shame is sublimated by going right back to the bottle and taking another swig.
Right.
And it's become self-perpetuating, and everybody would acknowledge in private that they have a problem with self-image, and nobody knows what to do about it.
Right.
Promise from personal experience, one of the best things that you can do about it is don't talk trash online, because you will stand taller, you will feel better about yourself, and it's listen, you can test it for a goddamn hour, and if it doesn't work, fuck me and go back to what you were doing before. But if it does work, scratch your head and start to ask why.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. The other thing that now Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it is monetized, right? He's got it monetized. So if you pay the monthly fee, you if you get a lot of people on your thread commenting, you get paid money.
Is that
They
right?
put ads on the thread now. And so people
Oh, I didn't realize that.
intentionally make controversial statements to piss everybody off so that they can make money. And a
Interesting.
lot of these people are doing that.
Now, as I understand it, you can also hide your monetization. Like that blue check that you get can also be hidden so people don't know you've monetized it.
Yeah, I think so. I know you could at one point. I don't know if they brought it back, but he also just recently hid everybody's likes because you could see what other people were liking before, like what posts they liked. So if you weren't sure if someone was like I hate
Jerk
to use the
off.
word jerk off. I hate to use the word Nazi sympathizer because I heard people talking Nazi all the time and thinking it's kind of hyperbolic, but they are sharing Hitler speeches, pictures of Hitler. Like there's like a Nazi movement.
So if somebody shares a picture of Hitler and I want to see, I wonder who liked this, and I go on there, I can't see that it was my
You
neighbor Mike.
not anymore, but you could. But Elon, that's the thing is Elon was liking all kinds of unsavory stuff like that,
No
and he was
shit.
getting called out on it. And now they took away the you can't see anybody's likes now.
So in order that he can like, an old lady getting hit by a bus or whatever it might be and not feel shame for it, shit, we've changed the whole pattern of a global media.
Yep,
So so it's impossible to see who's busy liking the trolls or liking
yep,
the blood splattered tragedies that make up our world.
yes, yes,
How fascinating. Well, we'll see what the future holds. I mean, I'm in touch with a lot of great people on Twitter.
yep,
I like them. I dig them. I don't want to walk away from that audience.
yeah, same.
But at a certain point, I ain't drinking spoiled milk. So I got to wait and see.
Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping I'm always hoping for something better to come up, or for one of the other platforms to get better somehow, or I don't know.
It happened. That Mastodon was like more complicated than,
Right.
fillings, and I just didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, it wasn't quite. It's like Twitter is so good when it's good. It's so good, especially for news and stuff and specific interests, specific things you're interested in. It was really a great format. But anyway, that's uh not worth talking about, I guess. But
Well,
uh,
there's probably videos. I beg your pardon. There's probably social media that I just don't use that tops Twitter in terms of reach, like TikTok. I
Right.
mean, I barely ever use it.
Same
I just
here.
feel as if generationally I have to surrender, you know.
Yeah. I finally started,
You did.
and then I just am not into it. I got granddaughters. They're totally into it. They love it.
Um,
They love it. And I'm just I can't love it. I can't. I try, and I'm just not into it.
I, I can't love it. And like my younger son Toby, who's 17, was showing me a mass channel on Twitch that's run by a guy. His name escapes me, but he's hilarious and he plays video games and stays up for 66 hours and then breaks down ears and gets hysterical because he's been up too long. And I realized that there is an entire global media out there of which I know nothing. I don't
Right.
participate. I just don't know a damn thing about it. I voluntarily left Facebook because I detested the false intimacy. I didn't like the whole friends paradigm. I don't know these people. They're not my friends. And I didn't like the fake intimacy.
Hmm.
And so I left Facebook, but I've stuck with Twitter and Instagram. Although for me, as I've said, the rules of the road are I don't engage in trash talk with assholes.
Right.
And and that makes it a lot better. It has a lot of other benefits besides. But these other sites, man, Rumble, Twitch, TikTok, I realize there's stuff going
It's
down on there.
crazy.
I realize there's people there I might, dig, but I can't, I
Yep.
just can't.
There was one account on TikTok that I really understood TikTok after seeing this one account. It was this woman, it was like some super genius woman who was an IT computer technician or something, and she was building a cave under her house, or a room under her house, by digging through the floor.
No
Did
shit.
I tell you about this before?
No, no.
Eh, yeah, she is one of the she's like a super genius, kind of probably on the spectrum. She seemed a little bit like
Right.
Aspergery, but
Mm.
super smart, and like figured out all these engineering feats and made this tunnel in her basement. Made She made this rig to get the rocks out of the basement. I mean, it's a huge undertaking. She made this corridor into this huge room, like digging and then figuring out how to rig it with electricity and stuff. And it was really amazing. It was like, wow, this is really interesting content. But I think her city found out and made her stop, because it was like she was doing serious
Right.
serious work, approved, or unpermitted
Right.
stuff in her house.
Fought
Uh,
through Twitter. I
it,
mean, TikTok, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, it's pretty amazing. But I haven't been able to get into it. Yeah, I mean, I kind of, I just haven't been on social media very much lately. I just kind of use it to promote my projects and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a time
Well,
suck.
I think the consistency is good in terms of promoting your art, because if you get on Twitter or even Instagram and you start posting on politics, it will envelop everything that you do and
Oh
everything that you,
yeah,
and it happens very, very quickly. And
I'm done with that. I
yeah,
years ago I was doing that. I was, it was bad. I was
I would do it once in a while, and I always regretted it. I
yeah,
mean, no matter what you're saying, something comes along and and spins it off into a ridiculous direction that
yeah.
was never intended or whatever.
There's no way to win.
It's death for politics. It really is. The only social media I would say I'm active on at all is obviously Twitter and Instagram. YouTube, if you want to call YouTube a social media, which I think it is. I mean, I don't post very much there, but I do post interviews and so forth
Hmm.
as um, and then Medium, if you want to consider Medium a social
Oh
media. I've
yeah,
been lured at times or to come over to Substack, but I never have because on Medium, for whatever its imperfections, I really like the text. It's super clean, it's super easy, and it does reach people. It does have a surprising reach.
yeah, yeah. I love your Medium page.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're the only one I subscribe to.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that.
So I wanted to ask you, were people coming up to you in the? I mean, I know it's a production environment, so it might be kind of like you're off limits to them and stuff. But I imagine people in that bar had stories. I bet you everyone there
Oh yeah.
had kind of their own stories of some kind of weird phenomenon in Roswell.
A huge number of people do. It's an Air Force town. It's a town where people either work on the Air Force, they work, for the Air Force, they work adjacent to it. They're a vendor. They know somebody who did, granddad did, or their, wife does or whatever. And so everybody has something. And in fact, one of the scenes in the first episode was an impromptu scene. I didn't even know they were filming it. They had 12 cameras, and so everything was
Oh
horse.
wow! So it's kind of like a reality show
Yeah, I mean,
in a way.
I mean, they would pick up what was in my notebook. I mean, I write, shit in my notebook, and they were like, "Hey, we saw you were writing that," and I was like, "Great," I buried the body. So this young woman and her boyfriend came up to me, and I was at the bar, and they were like, "Oh, can we show you something?" And she showed me something like it looked like a rocket launch, and you'll see it, right in the beginning of the show. And I'm like, "Holy shit!" Like there's a young woman right there. She's showing me something on her phone, and I'm like, "Wow, I don't know what it is, but that's pretty fucking cool."
Wow,
And so we had moments like that,
that's
and I
cool.
really enjoy them, because frankly, I'm infinitely happier when I'm talking to the everyday individual interested in the subject rather than the wingnut. The wingnut,
Yeah.
it can get really tiresome, and it's like, oh my God, it's like I'm not at a revival meeting here. I just want to have a conversation about what could that be, and maybe we'll do a little work on it and dig a little deeper. So that was the most enjoyable thing. I really dug the guests too. For the most part, there's probably a couple to whom I did not relate.
Hmm.
Uh, Maybe I didn't trust them or whatever, but by and large, the guests were very solid people, including among them tech people, veterans, active military, or people who maybe they work, in some sector like where they have like a very good hands-on working knowledge of tech and they understand what it means to go and, you know, look up software that gives you satellite launches or this or that, or, they do some diligence prior to coming to the table. And I found by and large, um, the experiencers were very solid people. And once in a while, the producers would get concerned, maybe that discussion is getting a little techie. And I said, look, just keep in mind, one of the most popular movies in America last year was Oppenheimer, and there is some tech in that. And there's a lot of people out there, whether it's draftsmen or mechanics or tradesmen, auto repair veterans, you name it, they've got technical knowledge and they want to hear about
Mm-hmm.
shit. My feeling is that tech does not scare people off. Tech actually is goddamn interesting to people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
It's become kind of a mainstream thing,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
So I was happy to meet people, like with technical knowledge um and they just had an interest in the background, of the story of what happened, the topic.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting that it's people from all different walks of life too. That kind of lends credibility to
So
it,
dig that. I
you know?
so dig that, and I really, I just want to meet together curious people. That's it.
Hmm.
That's enough for me.
Yeah.
Together curious people. I'm really happy to be in conversation with them.
Yeah. Cause you're one of them. So how do you have any input? You don't have any input on the guests? Is that all kind of taken care of and they sort of
Not
sit you
really,
down and
no. The producers really decided, and I thought they did a good job. I mean, the thing is, I think they implicitly understand, like anybody who comes to the table who seems like a wingnut is immediately going to turn off the viewer. They're just like, oh, fuck. I mean, they want people who are relatable. And I think they selected people, virtually everyone I met over the course of the shoot, with the exception of like maybe like one or two people, were relatable to other people who I enjoyed meeting. You
hmm,
know
yeah.
not like this excessive self-indulgence or, um, story after story. Some were more believable than others if they weren't stepping up with evidence and they were just stepping up with their own story. And to be frank, I if I I kind of at a certain point said, listen, let's say I am sitting on a jury and this person is on the witness stand. Happens to millions of Americans all the time. Do I think this is a canny, worthwhile person? And in most cases, whether or not I agree with their account, I said yes.
Hmm.
I think that's a reasonably together person. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the guy on the previews for, I think, I don't know, future episodes. There was one guy with like a kind of a cool, crazy mohawk.
Oh, I dig him. His name escapes me, but I like him. And I hope this is in the interview because he also did a lot of diligence on his experience before coming to the table. And you find that in a lot of people where it's not just like, oh, I was hanging out and, saw something. Fuck is that?
Right.
Did work and diligence. And I found that among a lot of people, they did some of their own background checking before stepping up. And I appreciated that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's a meaningful experience for you, you're going to want to look into it,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And there are ways you can look into it. You
Yeah,
can, shit, was that a drone? Was that Starlink? Was that a satellite? Was that, I live near an air base. Were they doing some experimental shit that night?
right.
Was it a flare? You can do some things, of course, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. Especially now with the internet, there's uh tons of resources. Um so how long did the shoot last?
Not long. I would say the whole shoot was under 2 weeks.
Oh,
Amazingly.
wow.
And we were originally going to be set 6 episodes, and the network bumped us up to seven, which I was very happy about.
Excellent.
And the, I mean, we would shoot several experiencers within the space of a day. These were long days,
Okay.
and people, I mean, during the course of a very extended shoot, there was probably one day off where everybody went out and hit the bars and had a good time and bonded, and then the rest of the time we were working, 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 and I mean there were people getting between 4 and 5 hours of sleep a night, and they're a little easier on you, as host because they don't want you to show up like Mr. Zombie, but I mean, our director, Mark Marinocchio, I would look at him sometimes and, I would like sort of joke with him, like, you lazy motherfucker, walking around like, like with, looking like, he just came out of like a fucking, just returned back from like World War One, his face is all white, and, he slept for 4 hours. And I mean, these people worked hard. They
Yeah.
worked hard. And I thought that the production company treated the crew really well, which I really
Oh,
appreciated.
that's good.
Like there was a party at the end of the shoot, and it was a really nice party with really good food and
Oh, cool.
well treated. And that meant a lot to me because these people are working hard.
Yep.
So there was, I think, an esprit de corps, a good feeling of friendliness on the set. The quality of the crew was just outstanding. I mean, outstanding. And the technical mastery. So I was very proud to be working with these people.
Yeah, it looked great. Everything looked really good too. It's really was shot well. Just looks super pro, and I think that stuff kind of translates. I think I think people sense in a show or in a movie if the crew likes each other. I think it really contributes to.
You do think that?
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
you've been on more movie sets than I have.
yeah, and there's a definite, there's shows where everybody hates, or movies I've worked on where everybody hated the director, everybody hated each other, miserable, and those shows generally were bad, ended up being bad movies, and there may be other reasons for that, but there's
I
a real,
found this in books, by the way, when I was working in publishing, I would find that there were certain people who were such troublemakers that even if they did a good job at the end of the day, um, a cloud would hang over the effort because they
yeah,
were just, and they didn't know how to respect people.
yeah. I'll tell you, working on these tool videos is a really good example. It was you know, shoestring budget, um, very intimate, small crew, but everybody was so into what they were doing
Mhm.
and knew that, I don't know, everyone was just into it. because they knew it was going to be good. They knew the music was good, and they knew the video was going to be good, and everyone put their all in, and it was super exhausting. I worked my first 36-hour day on a Tool video one time. It was brutal, but
No,
there was definitely that vibe, like we're making something great, and it really translates into it translated into amazing, really amazing videos.
I'm moved to hear that. I had had such a front and center perch to observe this in publishing, but I had not observed the same thing on screen just because I'm newer to it
Mm-hmm.
relatively, and I'm less immersed in it. But I would see that if you couldn't, if there wasn't an esprit de corps around the project, something was lost. Something was lost. Even if the book was successful, something
Right,
was. And I made decisions in publishing at certain points, not often, but I made decisions that even if somebody was a big seller and if they were an outrageous asshole, I would drop that person.
uh,
And towards the end of my career, I did that with more freedom. It was still very rare, but it
right,
would have best-selling authors. One in particular, I remember, and I was just like, "Nope, I won't do it. I won't do it." And somebody said to me, "What's the worst that could happen?" And they thought my answer would be, "Well, the worst that can happen is, our season gets fucked. We don't have the billing. We all. No, the worst that can happen, I realized, is I get physically sick because I so disdain being around this particular individual that it will make me physically sick.
right.
That's the worst that can happen, and that won't happen. I will not go there."
Yeah,
And it didn't happen often, but I think people have to fucking behave out there in this world.
yeah,
And they sometimes need a lesson in that. And maybe the lesson will never even take, but maybe the lesson ain't for them. Maybe the
right.
lesson for the other person saying, "Hey, I can actually do this, and the world doesn't end."
Yep.
You can stand up fully and say, "Not acceptable."
Yeah, that must have been
Because
a big responsibility being a book publisher.
it was huge and it could be scary because there were times where, like, somebody who doesn't make a deadline might not be aware that people's jobs could be at risk, that this is budgeted. This is not just, oh, we'll throw in, something else. You can't. And it was funny. A friend of mine was writing a story recently about a very famous author, the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and she pulled a novel of hers, I think, because there was some political flashpoint around it. And I said, the pulling of that novel, and I'm not saying this to make anybody feel bad, I mean, it's not about the individual. We all have our problems, but the pulling of a book can literally cost people their jobs because there isn't something to just slot right in.
Right.
And when you do that, it's having an effect up and down the chain. It's a very serious thing. I knew at a certain point, my days in publishing were limited, where I remember there was one season where I think I had 5 books under contract, and every author had been someone whom I had been current with, in touch with the whole time. Everything's going fine. So about 6 weeks or so before I had to really start to plan the season in earnest, I called every one of these 5 people, and every one of them had an excuse as to why his book would not be in on time.
Oh
And
wow.
you motherfucker. And then a couple did come through and they said, "No, you're right. I'm just going to put the pedal to the metal and I'll make it happen," which is the right answer.
Right.
Others did not. My dog has arthritis. My aunt is, whatever. And so, and I thought to myself, whew, that's heavy, man. And I don't know how I got through it, but nowadays, being self-dependent, and I'm sure you feel this too, it's such a source of joy.
Right.
Just being responsible to oneself. Like, if I don't dig this hole, nobody is digging this hole,
Yep.
and nobody else, is going to make excuses for it. It's me, and I find it a distinct source of joy. I mean, I go bounding out of bed in the morning when I am just answerable to myself, writing a chapter, writing an article, writing a book review, or whatever it may be. Not having to depend upon the standards of other people to see that the donuts are made, so to speak.
Right.
Pleasure. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure.
And the success is, really yours too when you get it. And the failure is really yours when you
Right.
fail. So it's like, it's a double-edged sword, but a good one.
Yeah,
It's
it is
like,
a good one. It really is. And there have been things I've sweat over and said, oh, am I doing a good job on this? Do I know what the fuck I'm talking about? Do I, and I love it. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, because that sweat equity is what goes into good work. And I remember when I was publishing my very first book, Occult America, in 2009, I said to myself, I want this book to succeed. I want this book to reach a large audience. But more than that, I want it to be a good book. And that's how I feel, to this day.
yeah, that's how I feel with my artwork as well.
Mhm.
It's like it
So
has to,
everyone can see it. I mean, everything you turn out, I'm like, this is my favorite thing you've done. No, this is my favorite thing you've done. This, because it's all of such quality and freshness.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I figure that's the game is you have to make something that you love, but it's also for other people to love. You want it to be successful and resonate with people. So
Yeah.
it's not like you're just making it because you're making it for yourself, but you're also making it for other people. There is that element to it.
Yes.
So there is we have this tendency as artists, I think, to I forget who I heard saying this recently. Like, it was someone talking about like you are kind of performing a service for people as an artist. It's you can't just expect someone to buy whatever you make. Like, I'm
Right.
so great, I can do anything and someone's going to buy it. You can't expect that from people. You have to make stuff that people think is cool. And the
Right.
trick is you have to think it's cool too. So you have to find the thing that people like that you like.
There's a philosopher named Michael Walzer who's, I believe, still alive. And he made the point once that every idea needs a constituency. An idea
Mm,
will die without a constituency. And I thought, well, there you go. I mean, that statement serves all of us in a
yeah,
certain sense. If somebody can't understand what I'm driving at, I will not have that constituency. And if I don't care about that, and I've never met anyone who doesn't care about not having an audience, not once,
right.
um, I will fail in a certain sense. Um, Another friend of mine, and this is perhaps a more challenging statement, another friend of mine who's a financier said to me that unless something is financially successful, you and others involved will not be happy. And that's a more challenging statement. And I would encourage people, myself included, to sit with that statement rather than judge it,
Hmm.
because we need to hear from finance people sometimes because that's part of life too.
Yeah,
And what do they have to say? Don't run away from it. Don't damn it. Just sit with it. See if
right.
you think.
Yeah, uh, I think it's kind of there's definitely truth to it, but I think people don't want to admit that. I don't want I don't want to
Yeah.
admit it, but I think it's kind of true because I know for me, I have to make money with my stuff because I'm supporting
Right.
this.
No spaghetti tonight.
So it's like it has to make money, and it's always had to make money since I started. It's never been like, well, I'm gonna make something and we'll see if people like it. Always, so I always have to think in terms of, um, how can I sell this? Is this going to be affordable? Are people going to like it enough to buy it? And if there are two ideas and one is more likely to sell than the other, I go with the one that's more likely to sell,
Mhm.
you
Right.
know?
And it's not that your heart is in one or the other any more or less.
Right.
You can sell out if you wanted to. Like if you said like I'm just going to paint pictures of the Frankenstein monster, like
Right.
it would turn into like 1,000 different studies of the Frankenstein monster that would be freakier than anything you ever did because that's what you need to express. And I couldn't. I mean, I've done books that have been unabashedly commercial, but they've always had the highest quality that I could possibly bring to them.
Right.
And like after I published The Miracle Club, uh, I had a publisher who came to me, who I trust very much, and he said, I want to sign up, two books with you, Miracle Habits and Miracle Month. And I was a little embarrassed by the scheme of the title, but I thought to myself, I believe in him. He wants to pay me for this. I am going to put only things in those books that I fucking 100% believe in, which is what I did. And they can go out into the world and I have no control whatsoever. The attempt to write a commercial book or do a commercial piece of work does not in any way guarantee that you're going to
Right.
secure greater readership or audience. There's absolutely no fucking correlation whatsoever. Um, and it can be, when the audience comes, it can be a surprise. When the audience comes, it might have something to do with the title, might have something to do with graphics. It might have something to do with just a sheer roll of the dice, and
Yeah.
you can never figure it out. You can never figure it out. Um, anyway, people talk of selling out, or, people online, especially X, they love using the term grifter. And it's like, if you guys knew how much working artists make, you'd reevaluate your entire idea of who is and isn't a grifter. I remember somebody was interviewing me the other day and said, people in this UFO world, how do you figure out the real people from the grifters? And I said, well, let me issue a dissenting note there. I encounter very few grifters, because if you knew the ball busting work that it goes into writing a book and how little money you really make on it, or giving a talk and hauling your ass across the country to get paid in fucking like chocolate bars or whatever, you'd have a whole different idea of what it means. It's not the paradigm that people understand it to be. They just don't understand it. Once in a blue moon, a pseudo skeptic will say, like, Horowitz, you in this ESP research, you're just a grifter. And it's like, dude, if you knew the life of a parapsychologist and those who write about parapsychologists and what that looks like, believe me, if anybody's interested in a grift, that's approximately the last place they would ever go.
Yeah.
Audience. There's no audience.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean,
I don't know.
that's the, to me, that's proof that you're into what you're doing.
Yeah,
You know
right.
what I mean? That you believe in what you're doing, because it's not really a commercial thing, not something that's wildly popular, writing books about ESP, doing ESP research. It's, especially nowadays, people are into it, but then it's like,
They won't pay for it.
yeah,
They won't pay for it. It's like a friend of mine is in a surf rock band that has no lyrics. They just do surf rock instrumentals. And I was like, that's awesome. And he said, yeah, that's what everybody says. Nobody fucking listens to it.
right.
Everybody says, I love the circus. Nobody goes to the circus, so we have no more circus.
Yeah.
And that's
Yep.
the thing, people don't expect to pay for things. They don't want to. They would sooner buy, a pretzel for $16 at a sporting event than they would spend half that amount on an ebook. And those are
Right.
just the, and I'm that person too. I do it. I take my kids to a sporting event, spend more money on snacks than I fucking, do maybe, I don't know, helping out somebody or something. And
Right.
it's shameful. It's who we are. We have to face this.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just apes.
We are fucking selfish apes. And once in a while, we can do better. And once in a while, we get glimpses of it. Um, and there are ways to do better. That I think we can get our arms around. Don't humiliate people. Don't trash talk about people. And if you're paying somebody, goddamn, pay that person.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't pay to the point where it's going to be ruinous, but allow them to feel taken care of. I do think everybody can get their arms around those things.
Yeah. And loyalty. That's another thing that
Loyalty.
you
Thank you.
you talking about loyalty, the first person, and I think I've talked about this on the podcast before with you, but my wife is the first person who really introduced me to how important loyalty was, because she's just a loyal person. And it's like, I don't know, growing up in my situation, I was all about, because the family situation was kind of dicey and scary. And I think I was all about just like protecting myself and not getting caught up in all the chaos around me. And so
Mhm.
I didn't really, no one really taught me loyalty until I got with my wife and realized how important it was with her. I remember one time I was living in this apartment complex. Actually, the Theosophical Society's Crotona up monastery that got turned into apartments. I told
Yeah.
you about that, I think. I
Oh
used
yeah, you live there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was in that apartment. It was really cool. But this one guy kept stealing our cat. We had these really cool black cats. And it was weird. And we kept getting the cat back. It's like, stop stealing the cat. One time he walked by me. We were standing outside and he had a beer bottle in his hand. And apparently, because I'm just, it's kind of was over my head. I'm not like a street fighting guy or anything, but my wife's kind of a scrapper. She's like, she saw the way he was holding this bottle and she just immediately went after him. It was like, what, don't you fucking look at him like that, blah, 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 like went after him and he like backed down because he was holding it like he was going to hit me with the bottle.
No shit.
Yeah. And I was just like this kind of babe in the, just naive, I was pretty young. And, but the way she jumped, the way she did that for me was just like, wow, that was loyalty. I
I
see
learned
the
about
power of
loyalty.
loyalty now. It was,
Yes, that's wonderful. That's
yeah,
wonderful. I learned about loyalty from the Dread Emperor in Paradise Lost, where he shows loyalty to his minions. Minions, that's a diminishing word. I don't like that. Shows loyalty to his comrades in arms. They lose, but they're unbound. And then he says, I'm going to go to Earth and I'm going to, fuck with the plans of the boss man who thinks that we've lost. And they said, don't go. It's too dangerous. Let us go. I'll go. I'll go. And no, no, no. I wouldn't be fit to fucking be called a leader if I wasn't the one who took the goddamn risk. And I learned about loyalty
hmm
and how embarrassed we are today to use words like loyalty, honor,
right,
nobility, courage. And it disgusts me how those words are considered to be sentimental, old fashioned,
yeah,
embarrassing on social media. It's everything that's wrong with social media,
right.
everything that's wrong. And I think that showing loyalty, honor, nobility, sink or swim, succeed or fail, what the fuck? When did we lose sight of all
I know
this?
it's crazy. I think it is kind of a throwback. Maybe
Mhm.
people think of it as a throwback. They associate loyalty with macho culture,
I
John
guess they
Wayne and stuff
say,
like
right,
that.
John Wayne and okay, well, why don't you watch The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance? I think that that movie has very good values. And I think that I was watching. Well, listen, I'll put it to you this way. I guess a lot of people feel that Victorian culture was maybe steeped in hypocrisy, and I'm sure there was. And people feel that the macho model of whatever we grew up with as kids was steeped in hypocrisy, and I'm sure it was. But you can expose that hypocrisy, but not throw out what people were striving for, what they were striving for. Because
Right,
today, it seems to me, we have no literacy whatsoever in any of those concepts, even to the point of not having terms or names for them.
right.
You call it solidarity. What's wrong with solidarity? But that doesn't mean tweeting. That means standing
Yeah.
by somebody with difficulty if they're part of your tribe.
Yep.
And if they are, then you be loyal to them,
Yep.
Mm.
Well, that's a good point to end on. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just
Wish
I
I was there.
I
You know,
know you gotta let me know.
it's not.
Let me know when let me know when you're.
Well, maybe not for you yet.
Yeah, I still got a few more hours, but yeah, let me know next time you're in town.
I will. Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. I love LA. I love the West. Yeah, I want to spend a lot more time out there. I'll be there soon.
Yeah. Good. So you don't what's the future for the show, or do you wait to see like how popular it is and
I
they
wait and see. It's on Wednesday nights at 10, both Eastern and Pacific on Discovery. You can buy the season as you did, and thank you, on
Mhm.
Amazon. You can buy the season on YouTube. It's coming to Max and Discovery Plus sometime later this summer. It might be August 1st, although that's not an absolute. Although I did go on HBO Max the other day, and there it was. So, who
It
knows?
was on
The next.
there because I just looked it up
Oh,
this
really?
morning. Yeah, and it wasn't on there. That's why I bought
Oh, I
it.
don't know. Maybe it was just. Oh God, it's so hard to keep track.
I
There's all these
know.
different platforms. My upstairs neighbor, she's like, "No, we don't have cable, but we have YouTube Premium, so we got it." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Because I didn't think it was going to be online. In any case, go to Google, put the goddamn thing into the
Yeah,
search window, you'll find it.
give the
It's
name. Give the name.
Yeah, yeah, Alien Encounters, fact or fiction. There are online options. I mean,
Yeah.
Amazon, YouTube. It's definitely coming to Discovery Plus and Max later this summer, and it's on every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Pacific on Discovery. So I'll be watching it with everybody else at a local bar where we had our launch party, which was a lot of fun last Wednesday. I'll be there probably every Wednesday because we don't have cable. So until it's I'm watching it with everybody else.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so happy for you and so proud of you, and I feel like one of the good guys got a TV show,
Mm.
and
That means the world to me that you'd say that. Thank you. Thank you.
it gives me hope for the future. And a guy with occult tattoos is on TV.
Right.
That's a good thing.
I know. Yeah. Thank you.
All
I
right.
so appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank you.
oh yeah. I thank you. I don't bug you to come on the show too much because I
I
don't.
love it.
I would have you on a lot. You probably wouldn't love it if I asked you as often as I wanted to. So I try and keep it to, you know.
We'll monetize it on Twitter. And they'll see.
Well, you are one of your episodes. The last one is, I think, the highest. I think it's the highest. It's either the first or second highest number of views for
Oh,
the chat
sweet.
for my channel. Yeah.
Sweet.
So
Sweet.
so I
Glad to
think
hear.
I made $10 off it.
All right. Woo.
Woohoo! So
Buy
anyway,
yourself the best Gatorade that you got. Yeah.
I'm working on it.
Right, right.
Well, thanks.
I have them speckled things floating in it.
Well, thanks for coming on. Always great talking to you.
All right. Thank
Don't,
you for everything.
don't hang up. And then
I won't.
and then we have to say goodbye. We have to just say, remember, we say goodbye however you want.
Oh, that's right.
Say goodbye to the audience in any way that you want.
I can do this now.
Yes.
Okay. Loyalty, solidarity, nobility, fuck the trash talk, do your work, pay people well.
Perfect.
And thanks for
Goodbye.
watching.
Goodbye, everybody.